What a journey through the political spectrums it has been, my friends. At times intense, at times hilarious. This is one of the more hilarious moments, but an important one nonetheless. Imagine a young T-man, in his late teens through his early 30s, looking for the answers to the riddle of humanity. It'll be a bit too deep to get into all the nuances, so we'll speak in very broad terms. I had, for the longest time, viewed the answers as requiring the elimination of government. It's not difficult to see why one would come to such a conclusion with these last couple decades, and even though my position is drastically different right now, I would not say that my stance was initially wrong. Everywhere I looked, every government, or quasi-government structure if we looked at corporations and other similar institutions, seemed to have its hands dipped in evil and incompetence. I was in 7th grade when 9/11 happened. 12-year-old me didn't know a thing about the Middle East or Islam. I was in the American education system after all. But following it, all I saw was war and destruction and incompetence from our own government. I went down many rabbit holes, from contemporary history of governments to the more conspiratorial sides of the conversation. This was a time before YouTube, so if you wanted to know about a topic, you couldn't look up some 10-minute video essay on it. You either have to dive in deep or pass up on it. From teachers to employers, I kept seeing people who were supposed to be the authority incapable of doing their tasks, and being more so in the way than anything else. Here's two related, quick little fun stories I have, anecdotes to be sure, but it serves to show the microcosm of a grand problem. When I was working as a personal trainer and fitness center supervisor, with that last title basically being a glorified desk jockey, I had a fitness center manager who was great, real down-to-earth guy, not someone who would have any interest in chasing corporate ladder, as it were. He helped teach me a lot about the fitness industry, and one of the cool things he taught me how to do was fix the cardio equipment on my own. He showed me how to take them apart, the components, most common problems, etc. It was great because it saved the community center a lot of money. I believe it cost something like $50 at the time just to bring a technician out there and take a look, and that's outside any labor costs associated with it. This was a place I practically grew up in. I have been going there since I was like 10 years old, so I loved the idea of making the place better however I can. Fast forward, he leaves to go to work for someone in his family at some other job. The community center hires a woman from a corporation's gym. To be clear, I don't mean a corporate gym like Planet Fitness, I mean a corporation that has their own gym built inside it. She was definitely a ladder-chasing corporate gal. She had me stop fixing the machines, because there was a proper procedure that needed to be followed. Sometimes I couldn't fix the machines, but never did I cause any sort of incident. But since that wasn't the bureaucracy of how they did things, I had to stop, and I got to watch hundreds if not thousands of dollars go to waste for problems that might have been as simple as a wire got loose and I needed to plug it back in. The other story, from the same job, we were still using those old-time punch cards that you would see on the Flintstones or something. Imagine a place of employment in the 2010s, computers already hooked up everywhere, still using physical time punch-in cards. It took hours to fix the mistakes and properly tally everything up, needlessly archaic. Finally, we were switching to an online system, where we could clock in or out from the computers on the desks. I went to one of those open to the public meetings where the board of directors vote on things. There was one person there who especially stood out. Her name was Susan. I still remember her name because you don't forget stupid like this. The plan was simple and obvious. You take out the time card punchers and start using the online system. Susan had some objections. She wanted to know, what were we going to do with the physical time card punchers and papers? Well, we were gonna get rid of them. Right, but where would they go? Nowhere. We're not gonna use them. But what about the buildings that still use them? No building will use them. We're getting rid of it. But if we're getting rid of it, how will we know if we're properly tracking the time? You think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It was actually worse than those examples. This crap went on forever. Pure sub-80 IQ mongoloid energy. This wasn't the only moment of mind-numbing stupidity, just the one I remember best. And this woman was on the board of directors! She ruled over us all, in a manner of speaking. She obviously didn't get there through meritocracy. The positions were voted on. These kinds of events further solidified in my mind that we cannot be ruled over by these stupid and feeble people anymore. It took so long to replace the punch-in system because they would have votes on if they should have a discussion on something next month. And then in that next month, after the discussion, they say they'll have a vote the following month if they will have a vote on what was discussed the month after that. Yes, vote on if they should have votes. The sheer ineptitude that I was seeing from my community center, my community that I legitimately loved. I did not need my inferiors, these incompetent, buffoons to tell me what to do in order to make this place a better place. This, combined with one more thing, turns into a grand problem that I had, and see if you can figure out what this grand problem is, as this is an all too common problem that many folks share, which will tie in with the shopping cart. On top of the issues mentioned so far, I've personally met and known people who were extraordinarily gifted and talented. People who, because of circumstance, got screwed out of life. Singers with angelic voices who could run laps around your average manufactured pop star. Artists who could set your soul on fire. Intelligent people who could solve any problem within their sphere. People who could legitimately make this planet a better place, but would never be able to get over the amount of government bureaucracy to get anything going. It was similar with my business. Navigating the waters of Illinois cost me over $50,000, and if you add up indirect costs like missed opportunities or interest, we're looking at 6 figures easily. My favorite moment was when I tried to open up a physical location for my tea shop. They said I needed a grease trap, since I'd be classified as a restaurant, and those were the rules. Why would I need a grease trap for a tea shop? I don't. A fresh installation was looking at around $30,000. As a cherry on top, I found out the government could sign a waiver saying I didn't need one. I asked, why wouldn't they? And they said, well, what if you do decide to become a normal restaurant later on down the line? You mean what if I fundamentally changed my entire business? So, you get the point. I don't need government to tell me to be a good person. They just get in my way. They get in everyone's way. Every governmental or corporate authority figure I run into seems to be too incompetent to get where they are on merit. With no government, or excessively limited government, the people would govern themselves. I could see it all working out within my own life. That's the problem right there, in that last sentence. Within my own life. I hadn't yet truly figured out how to view other spheres of life and existence from perspectives other than my own. I thought I did, but really all I was doing was superimposing myself onto other people and imagining myself in a scenario, thinking I was now looking at things with a new lens. It wasn't a new lens. It was the same lens put in a different spot. As the years went on, there would be this certain voice in the back of my head, too soft for me to truly hear it, but I kept being able to associate the context it was giving me. Important and common questions I did not have the answers to, that I assumed I would find the answers eventually. I met those competent, nice, kind people, but what about those that were not? I kept finding some variation of, if the government wouldn't get in the way with the school system or tax us, or whatever excuse, that would explain away these people. I could not square the circle of simultaneously saying, if you remove the barriers, people's inherently good nature will sprout up, and a very few handful of bad people would be easily dealt with, while at the same time arguing with communists who would, effectively saying the same thing. I would read book after book of various political leaders, kings, generals, all these people of positions of authority who made a massive difference, yet still saying that none of them mattered and they just got in the way. A small but important example in the corporate world was the CEO of Domino's. To give a shortened version, Domino's was ready to go bankrupt and out of business. Their pizza was awful. They brought in a new CEO. He grabbed the company by the balls and single-handedly changed this massive international corporation, saving them from certain death and making them a powerhouse in the pizza industry. So what the hell was I doing? Studying, hoping to become as competent and skilled as these men one day, while simultaneously trying to make sure that these men don't exist in the structure that they use to do their good. It was a long, constant conversation going on in the back of my mind that I kept putting off. Every example of a person I'd meet in my personal life that showcased that they would not work in any system that gives them free reign, I will brush it off as one of those rare exceptions. Then, one day, while browsing the internet, I came across it, the meme. To those unaware of it, I shall read it for you. The shopping cart is the ultimate litmus test for whether a person is capable of self-governing. To return the shopping cart is an easy, convenient task, and one which we all recognize as the correct, appropriate thing to do. To return the shopping cart is objectively right. There are no situations other than dire emergencies in which a person is not able to return their cart. Simultaneously, it is not illegal to abandon your shopping cart. Therefore, the shopping cart presents itself as the apex example of whether a person will do what is right without being forced to do it. No one will punish you for not returning the shopping cart. No one will fine you or kill you for not returning the shopping cart. You gain nothing by returning the shopping cart. You must return the shopping cart out of the goodness of your own heart. You must return the shopping cart because it is the right thing to do, because it is correct. A person who is unable to do this is no better than an animal, an absolute savage who can only be made to do what is right by threatening them with a law and the force that stands behind it. The shopping cart is what determines whether a person is a good or bad member of society. Oh boy, this message struck a chord with me deep down. It outlined exactly why I was wrong. It took those vague and nebulous concerns that played the back of my mind and it gave them a voice. I was so blinded by the few people that did good, that were good, and my own personal desire to believe in humanity that I kept insisting that everyone was as good as those people I have met, or would strive for goodness like I did. There is no governmental structure, no corporation, no authority whatsoever that will keep these people from doing such a basic good deed. And if it needs to be spelled out for you, no, it doesn't just stop at the stupid cart. When I worked at Whole Foods, before it was bought by Amazon, it was the place you would expect environmentally conscious people to go to and do the right thing with their garbage. We had a place for trash, recycling, and compost, easily laid out for people to see. On most days, the differences were meaningless. I would constantly go in and try and put things in the proper place. Not because it was my job, because it was the right thing to do. Again, no one is forcing anyone to do anything good or bad. There is no immediate consequence for them not throwing things out in the proper place, but they still would not. I worked at other fast food joints like Chipotle. I would constantly see people take a few dozen napkins, use one or two, then pocket the rest or just leave the others for us to throw away. They would be inherently wasteful, all because they could. The amount of money we would blow because they kept throwing away the plastic trays was aggravating to say the least. That was something like 15 years ago, but I still see it happen to this day. And once again, I'm hoping people can extrapolate the message of what I'm saying. Taking extra napkins, like not returning a shopping cart, is not the end of Western civilization. The underlying energy behind it, however, is a problem that festers if ignored. In ancient China, there was an emperor who was kicked out of his position as emperor after only 27 days because he refused to follow the rites and rituals that were established. If he couldn't show enough respect to bow and respect the gods, how can he be trusted to respect the common people? Even when I would try to work in charity, for as brief as those moments were, I would see the sort of laziness and apathy, surrounded by people that should have had the same mindset as me of trying to make the world around them a better place. And it's like they were there solely for the praise and virtue signaling, and not for the work. Or even worse off, people that we were supposed to be giving charity to also seem to lack a certain level of humanity. Seeing two fat people fight for free groceries when there was more than enough to go around changes you. All I've been talking about so far are the relatively bad, or rather apathetic, people. There's also another level to it, and that's people who would not harm a fly and genuinely mean well, but they're just not as smart. God bless their souls. It's not that they would use any self-governance to make bad choices, it's that they just don't know any better. Think of it as someone who knows nothing of calories and nutrition. They might not want to get fat, but their natural instincts lead them to food that will make them fat. I kept trying to formulate all these thoughts over the years around the idea of no government use of force. Events such as the George Floyd riots drastically shifted my mind with that. And funnily enough, that's around the time that this meme came online. Once I stopped thinking that way, once I stopped thinking that every problem can be solved without authoritative force, once I realized the amount of people who would require force to keep under control was substantially higher than I had given it credit for, it was like 100 connective puzzle pieces all came together, filling in so many holes and causing so many pictures to become clear. Before the closing thoughts, real quick, I don't have any outside sponsors and never will. That's because I run my own business and have for over 9 years now. I sell tea, coffee, and soaps. They're not drop shipped. I make the soaps myself, roast and grind the beans right here, and mix and bag the teas. The anime theme may not be to some people's liking, but no worries, the flavors speak for themselves. We do have a Patreon-like service called Dragon's Wings, and a monthly tea subscription called Only Teas. It's what funds me and this channel, so you don't even have to fund me for free, you get something out of it right away. Also, hit the subscribe button and like the video, and let's head back to the vid. Of course, this newfound big brain enlightenment does not solve the problem of the current government, and that applies nearly globally, being full of inept incompetence, from the top to the bottom, whether through genuine lack of ability or pure malice. Even if we need the police force, they are currently a mess, and are actively taking part in that highly accurate term for our current government, anarcho-tyranny. The next question for me became, how did things get so bad? That, I'm afraid, won't be able to fit at the end of this here video, as that will be a vast topic all on its own. But what do you make of the shopping cart theory? If you are a libertarian or anarchist, how do you square that circle? We've ironically seen pockets of the system I thought would work in various parts of the country, but in all the places where the government began to refuse to prosecute and lower the presence of police, the worst things got by a huge margin. Think every big blue sanctuary city you can find, with prosecutors refusing to use the power of government to prosecute the good boys who didn't do nothing. Oh, this past half-decade has been an enlightening one indeed. Assuming nothing major pops up, the next video is going to be on the topic of freedom. I think it's going to make a lot of people very uncomfortable, but in a good way. If you want to know what I mean, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.